Hi folks, Ken Ring here of www.predictweather.com. I would just like to draw your attention to this map, this graph here of barometric pressure for Christchurch and Canterbury region, and you'll see here at Tuesday there was a peak and it comes right down to this point here, which is a low point. It has actually dropped about 24 points over about 3 days, and this is very significant. Also it's significant this greater drop just here, which started about 10 o'clock this morning and went through to about 4:30 this afternoon, and this point here was the point of new moon, when the moon was at a peak of gravitational attraction, and the following day was what we call the perigee. Now the new moon and the perigee, they bring about a situation called the king tide, and the king tide is what happens every month when we have the largest tide of the month, and here it is for December, and between the 4th and the 6th give us this king tide situation. The king tide is brought about by the perigee, which is when the moon is closest to the earth, and it was perigee number 5, which is quite a powerful perigee. When you get a perigee, you get strong winds around the place, you get extreme weather, and things like earthquakes, and most importantly, when we get a big barometric drop, that usually signals an earthquake is coming, and especially this particular slope here today, which predicted, if you like, the shake that happened on Friday, a little cluster of shakes actually. There was also an earthquake around about the same time in the county of Cork in Ireland. So there you get this particular situation when the barometer drops. All sorts of things happen in the natural world too. Animals seem to get headaches or get annoyed by the pressure difference in the air, and you also get a sudden hiking, rapid air pressure rise and a rapid air pressure drop round about the time that earthquakes come along. Now this is, we can predict these, and we actually did predict these on what we call our newsletter, which we put out every month, and this is the December one. It was put out a few days ago, but the November one as well had this table I'm about to show you, which is the look of December. Now here's our perigee and our new moon here, and here's our big value risk time for earthquakes, plus our depiction of a rapid air pressure drop, RAPD, and the king tide. Now this particular chart was posted at the end of October for the November newsletter as well, and what you're seeing here is an outline of when the greatest earthquake risk times are coming in December, not only for New Zealand but around the world, depending where the clusters of earthquakes are actually happening at the moment. So it just happens to be that New Zealand is still getting a fair number of earthquakes around the Seddon area, and also around Milford Sound, and also between the North Island and the Kermadec in the Kermadec Trench. So those are the areas, not Christchurch, they've had their lot. It's north of Christchurch now, and what we're looking at are potential times for shakes that are to come around about these moon events. So we've got a 6 here and a 6 here. Now that does not mean magnitude really. These figures are just an indication of the highest magnitude that we can expect from earthquakes that are going to be happening, not necessarily in any particular country. It just depends where they are actually currently happening. But that's the risk time. The next risk time is really not until the last few days of the month and coming in to the first days of January. So there's another risky time round about the 2nd, which will be perigee number 2. Now this means that the moon will be the second closest to the earth on January the 2nd for 2014. Perigee number 2 is an interesting situation because the 4th of September 2010 was also Perigee 2, and we do get some very strong earthquakes around Perigee 2 when, of course, that comes once a year. Now you'll see it says here Mercury, Sun, Venus, so they will be in an alignment situation with Mercury and Venus on either side of the Sun, and that is quite a strong indicator for earthquakes in this particular region. You'll see here there's the king tide as well, and really January is going to be fairly active in the middle as well, and also at the very end when the Perigee 3 comes along, which is also a pretty powerful situation. So those are the earthquake times. Now, I'm not saying this to alarm people. I'm not saying it so they leave Christchurch and go live somewhere else. All I'm trying to do is warn people of these potential times so they think twice about going into buildings that look fairly unsubstantial, or they have cracks in them, or they're high-rise and they're old or condemned, or anything like that. So it's not just in the Seddon area between Christchurch and Wellington, it's also around the Wellington region itself, because they're starting to get these tremors moving closer towards that area. But it's nothing to get alarmed about. It's just something that if you start to hear the rumbling, then you assure your children that this will be over soon, because it will be in a couple of days' time. So that's what this work is for, that we're doing. It's just to prepare people. It's not to make them scared. Have we had turbulent weather around the world because of the Perigee? Yes, we have. We've had all sorts of winds around Wellington, and planes were finding it hard to land during the past few days. The UK and Ireland have had some really strong winds because the Perigee affects all places. The Earth revolves under the Moon once a day, so all places get this lunar script, if you like. And of course, we don't all have the same conditions because different countries have different elements to them. They're different topography, they're different elevations, and they have different angles of sunshine striking them. That's because they're further or closer to the equator, and they also have all sorts of other things going on under the Earth in terms of densities of Earth. So, it's not that earthquakes are going to happen everywhere. What happens is that when the Moon comes over, there's a jostling inside the Earth and a pressure release from that jostling that comes up through the Earth, and there is actually an earthquake, if you like, every single day, but it's not detected. It's really called the land tide, and New Zealand goes up and down about 8 inches a day due to this land tide. But when the Moon is closer, in the Perigee situation, the pressure within the Earth caused by the closer Moon means that the Earth can't get out of the way fast enough to relieve the pressure, and it comes through as an earthquake. But these Perigees, they happen once a month, and you always get a storm around about the Perigee time. It's something to note. You can ring it in your calendar. The mariners know all about Perigees. They know all about the turbulent weather that comes with the Perigees. If you want to get our newsletters delivered to you by email, then just go to our website, which is www.predictweather.com, and you'll see down here it says sign up for free. All you have to do is click on that, and you will get an entry form to fill out, and the newsletters will be delivered to you. We've got about 9,000 people already on our newsletter list, and increasing all the time. Now, it's free. There's all sorts of information in the newsletter about weather coming up, not only for New Zealand but Australia, different parts of Australia, and transcripts from interviews that we do around New Zealand, Australia and Ireland. So for those 3 countries, if you want to know what's coming up in the next few months, you can look in there. What's coming up for New Zealand? Well, over when this rain is over, after this weekend, summer will start, and we will have 2 weeks of hot and dry weather almost for the whole country, and I'm picking round about the middle of December. There's going to be some really high temperatures around the place, especially places like Christchurch. They may get into the 30s, and this has all been set out in our almanac, which was written 3 years ago now, for this year. So that's what's coming up for New Zealand. And the next 2 weeks are going to be dry and sunny, and then Christmas we're going to get some rain. So unfortunately, between about the 23rd and just after Boxing Day is going to be a wet period. It's going to dry up for a couple of days, and then New Year's Eve is going to be wet again until about the 4th, and then we're in for about another 2 weeks of dry weather with a heat wave in the middle of January. But I'll be talking about that more as the time comes. Just know for now, summer starts next week, and there's 2 weeks of glorious weather coming up. In Ireland, I'm not expecting any snow until around about the end of December. There may just be a little bit in the last couple of days, but really the country is set to go really cold in the first 10 days or so of January. That'll be some of the coldest temperatures for the winter. Some places will get down to -10, I think in the north, and possibly Dublin down to about -8. Australia, well, you're looking at a cyclone season that is going to come a bit earlier this year, but it's still going to be a fizzer. You're going to get some tropical cyclones that are going to form pretty well every month in the summer month, and some of them will try to take off and affect northern Queensland, but in the main they'll go towards Western Australia, and Western Australia will get more cyclones than anywhere else. I'm expecting about 11 this year, but really only 3 of them will cross the coast. So it will be an earlier monsoon season, but really the monsoonal rains won't come down very far, and the south of, for instance, Northern Territories, out the Alice Springs area, they will still get a dry summer. They won't be affected by the monsoonal rains. And there'll be a lot of heat around, but there'll also be, especially in the eastern side of the country, a lot of rain over the summer as well. And something to watch out for Queensland is that there's going to be some pretty violent floods in May, but I'll talk about that a bit more closer to the time. So enjoy the summer, folks, that's coming up. Watch out for these earthquake times, and look for signs on your barometer that there's a sudden decrease or a sudden increase. Register for our newsletter. Here it is here, and you'll get it coming to you, and then you can scroll to the bottom and see these times for yourself. If you're concerned about earthquakes, you'll see here it says RAPD, that's rapid air pressure drop. There are sound scientific reasons why the air pressure correlates with the land tide that comes up every day. And I hope this has been of interest to you. If you have any questions, please email me on ken@predictweather.com, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Now I'm trying to look for, here it is here, or something else to tell you. This is the Wonderground site for Christchurch, and it's pretty useful for looking at daily and weekly and monthly events like barometric pressure drops, things like that. How do I work out what's coming up far ahead? Well, I do it by lunar cycles, and I'll be talking about that in another video. But just for now, know that these are predictable, and they're actually coming around again in January. So what we said here for the beginning of January actually mirrors what happens here. So that's one king tide, and the next king tide happens here, and it's once again going to be severe weather for that particular month, probably the most severe in January. So I hope that's been of help to you. Ken Ring signing off. Thanks for your interest.